We now come to Environment and Infrastructure, Regional Community Sport and Recreation Precinct Heads of Agreement Extension. So this recommendation is authorising the CEO to update the Heads of Agreement with a revised expiry date of the 31st of May. You're moving that way, Councillor Burns?
I would propose an alternate motion, please, to defer this to the May council meeting and to have a workshop in April where we actually go through some counter proposals back to the developer. So I think our leverage at the moment is that this agreement is going to expire, and if we just extend it, I believe we'll lose some opportunity for leverage negotiations.
I believe we have got a workshop looking at the different models in the next week on Monday.
Okay.
So we have that workshop.
We don't actually extend the agreement. The motion is to extend or make a decision of the May meeting, not now. So it gives us an opportunity to workshop through, discuss.
Okay. So what is your motion, Councillor Burns?
To defer 12.1 to the May council meeting.
Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you. Do you want to speak to that, Councillor Quaremba?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I think what Councillor Burns is trying to allude to is that if we defer this, the developer isn't going to walk away, but it gives us an opportunity to actually unpack the heads of agreement and come up with what I would argue, and I'll agree with Councillor Burns, is a much better option for council and the ability to do things outside of the current heads of agreement. So I think it's prudent. We're not walking away from the developer or the private-public partnership, but I think we need to renegotiate the heads of agreement and its terms, and in order to do that, we as a council need to unpack what is currently the heads of agreement, and then I would argue come up with more favourable terms moving forward.
Thank you. Councillor Mann?
Question: are we able to extend something that may expire before we're wanting to extend it?
That's a very good question.
Through the Mayor, you are correct. So the current heads of agreement expires on the 31st of March. Hence, we were bringing this to extend it to the 31st of May to enable us to continue those discussions.
Any further discussion?
Can I make an amendment to the motion?
It's your motion. You can do what you want.
Not my motion. Yeah.
You move.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I just amend the dates. Obviously, Councillor Burns has got the dates wrong. So the motion, the term expires on the 31st. How about we have a workshop prior to the council meeting and then go ahead, because the council meeting.
We've got a workshop on Monday night.
Yeah, but the workshop is about the models, not about the heads of agreement. Correct? This is about the heads of agreement. I'm asking to have a workshop.
So what is your amendment, Councillor Quaremba?
To defer this till the next council meeting, which will be prior to the expiry of the heads of agreement as it stands, correct? Just want a clarification on that before I put the motion up.
So wouldn't that be the March?
Okay.
March meeting's on the 24th of March.
Great. So have a workshop prior to the expiry of the current heads of agreement to, as I said, unpack and come up with more favourable terms moving forward if we decide to go ahead with this new heads of agreement. We only have one opportunity, and that would be now before signing on to the existing heads of agreement.
Councillor Burns, are you happy with that variation of the motion?
Because that would achieve the workshop, and then it provides clearer direction to the CEO to be able to continue negotiations with the developer, and also allows us to use the heads of agreement as a lever for leverage.
Does anybody want to speak to that motion? Councillor Kemp?
Yes, I think it's important that we get our ducks lined up, because according to the commentary in here, this is about our third iteration of a heads of agreement extension, I think, from what's in the documents here. So, sorry, go ahead.
So it's the second extension. So you amended it in October to include the council's ability to look at a council-operated option, the buyback, and also the purchase of the detailed designs. This is the second extension.
Second. All right.
of just time frame, no other elements of the actual heads of agreement. The heads of agreement still contains all the original council's requirements of non-negotiables.
Having extensions and things like this actually adds time to a project, and of course, I think while we keep doing these extensions at times, I think we could get on with the job and actually get it built ourselves in a certain time and fashion. So I agree with having a look at this proposal to break it down again, revisit it, get our heads around it, and to look at exactly what type of model would be the best one for us to go through, and whether the heads of agreement goes ahead or not. Again, we've got to look at what's best for our community.
Councillor Mann?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Jenkins. Yeah, no, I'm not sure about this motion. It seems to be like a bit of a motion on the fly in some ways, but what I do know is that we need to extend this heads of agreement because it will lapse, and we have been told by our independent audit committee, and we've discussed in the chamber around, there is still a lot that council needs to work through in terms of the models that we're looking at. And in terms of the negotiations with the proponent, again, this is a high level heads of agreement. If council are looking at favourable terms and looking at how we negotiate that with the proponent, if council is to go down that path with the proponent, those negotiations are still to be had. We are still at a very high level in a sense in terms of those negotiations, and we have got the financial modelling for the first time maybe 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago now, and there's still a lot more that needs to be unpacked in that sense. I think personally I was quite happy and am quite happy with the existing of looking at extending that current heads of agreement to allow for those discussions and further investigations to be had, and I believe it are still within the scope of what we were needing to explore in terms of the options before us and the different fallback positions, and the fact that there is no guarantee that that a public-private partnership could or will eventuate, but there's still options as the fallback can still be investigated, and I think there's different discussions or different things are being referred to in this motion, but I guess in that summary, we're looking at extending that heads of agreement as it currently stands, which allows for those continued negotiations to allow for more time. If anything, potentially my worry is that maybe it might not be long enough, and it may be the case that we need to go back and say, hey, we need to extend it again. Hopefully not, because I guess what the community might not have appreciated is the current time frame was to work towards the federal government elections and trying to get something where it could be shovel ready, so we could go to the federal government, we could go and try and attract that extra funding. But I think the importance of getting the modelling right, and especially with the operating model, is so significant that we need to spend this extra time, that if it means missing out on a bit of grant funding here or there as part of the federal government, then I think it's worth having that extra time to explore it. We've talked a lot tonight about the depreciation and the impact of that. If council want this to be on our books and not to be through a public-private partnership, or maybe it's on our books because we went for the hybrid option or whatever it is, then I guess that depreciation is something that, again, we need to consider. The heads of agreement has been negotiated and extended so council's had two opportunities to one, negotiate it, and then negotiate it and extend it, and I think it's important in this instance that we have that extra time, and all the important negotiations and discussions will come out as part of if council is wanting to go forward with the proponent and drilling down at that micro level, because I think that's really where it is important if we do go forward with it.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Does anybody else want to speak to this? Councillor Henderson?
Totally agree with everything Councillor Mann has just said.
Anybody else? I'll just let people know that if this recommendation that's on the board at the moment is lost, then we'll go back to the recommendation that is in the agenda. Councillor Burns, did you want to close the debate?
Close, thank you.
Sorry?
Oh, close.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, isn't that my motion? I amended the motion.
No, it was Councillor Burns's motion, and Councillor, you varied the motion. You and Councillor Burns together.
Okay.
That's Councillor Burns' motion. Councillor Burns, do you want to close? Councillor Burns, do you want to close the debate?
Councillor Quaremba just wanted to talk to it, and I'm happy if he actually does talk to close it.
He didn't talk to it earlier on, but with leave of the meeting, is the meeting happy for Councillor Quaremba to... Yep, Councillor Quaremba, would you like to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Chamber. I just want to make it clear to the elected body that this deferment motion doesn't actually stop us from signing the heads of agreement, but I believe that, and we can't go into the discussion about the heads of agreement because it is in confidence for now. This will come out of confidence, and what I'm alluding to is that I think we can do a much better deal if we just go and I could be wrong, you can all vote on it, but I'm just saying we need to unpack the heads of agreement, maybe put in a few more favourable terms that may get better outcomes for the community, and not doing this at some stage will come out of confidence, and then the questions will be asked, why wasn't it done? So I'm just trying to help the Chamber. The heads of agreement doesn't expire before this motion. We can still sign the heads of agreement and leave it as is, but I would hate for the community to think that we haven't done everything we possibly can to get the best deal out of this heads of agreement. That's the whole point of this motion.
Councillor Burns, do you want to close the debate?
Closing it now, thank you. I'm fine.
You're fine? Okay, I'll put that motion to the... the debate's just closed, Councillor Quinton, sorry. I'll put this to the floor. All those in favour? Those against? Sorry.
Or division.
Those in favour, please stand. Councillor Burns, Councillor Quaremba and Councillor Kemp. Those against, Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Mann, Councillor Schiller, Councillor Quinton, Councillor Schofield and Councillor Henderson. That motion is lost. We now return to the motion 12.1 and someone can move that way. Councillor Mann moving that way and seconding Councillor Henderson. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor Mann?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Jenkins. I guess I just asked the CEO to give, for the benefit of the council and community, a bit of a broad overview of what a heads of agreement is. And I guess there's been comments around favourable terms and things like that. I don't want a situation where we're confusing a framework of negotiation with the actual negotiation of the terms of a deal, if that's possible.
Yes, I can through the Mayor. So the heads of agreement it's referred to as not a non-binding legal document. It's not a lease. It's not a contract. It's just terms in which the council has entered into with a proponent saying we have non-negotiables are the things that we want delivered out of this for our community. And some of those, for example, are a forecourt basketball stadium, community facilities that other community members can utilise and actually makes benefits for the broader community. There were a number of other terms in there. The council has recently incorporated into that it would like to also consider the opportunity to be the operator, as the developer has come forward with a preferred operator in their negotiations that they originally presented to council. So we want the last amendment, the council said that that's fine, but the council would also like to consider it being the operator and also have direct input into those detailed designs. The council would like to explore the options of buying it back from the developer in 42 years, because there was some concerns raised around the community about the longer term land lease for that site. And the council also wanted to make sure that if, for example, this public-private partnership didn't come to fruition, it was in a position to actually have some detailed designs within its hands. So the consultation with the developer, the last iteration of the heads of agreement was to get the developer to move ahead with those detailed designs, noting that council would look to buy them back to a maximum cost of about $750,000, so that it was ready, shovel ready to apply for any grant funding itself if this partnership didn't come to fruition. The heads of agreement will lead the council into making sure all the terms and conditions council is comfortable with if it was to progress further to an agreement for lease. And even then, the agreement for lease is just to articulate the terms of what that lease would look like, would then lead on to the actual lease itself.
Excellent. Thank you, CEO. I guess in terms of this motion and looking at the extension of the existing one and those terms is that, as I said before, council have negotiated this twice and looked at different models and varied that scope already and increased it. I guess what we're hearing from that, again, council is always in between a rock and a hard place. We're hearing communities saying, you've been exploring this project's been going on for 10 years, you've been exploring the public-private partnership for at least a year, and we're at this point where we're only just getting a very high-level idea of the financial implications of that. Now, to then go back and then for council to consider the heads of agreement, the broad framework for which we do the negotiations with, is again either a change of the scope or expanding that, and we're never really getting closer to a target of what does the financial implications look like for council to do a public-private partnership, or for council to, as the CEO said, explore an option where maybe council is the operator but does not own the facility. We have a broad framework to work within at the moment to start exploring those things, and I think the time needs to be spent on looking at a deeper level, as our audit committee has said, those financial implications of the options, noting that there are fallback positions, and even if we do want to proceed down that public-private partnership, it's still subject to grant funding and a number of other things. So I think we have to be careful when we're trying to expand the scope and reduce it, because we don't progress down at that deeper level where we need to be able to actually make an informed decision about whether this is the right or the wrong decision for council.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Does
Point of
anybody
order. Oh, sorry.
What's your point of order, Councillor Quaremba?
That's all right. You're going to let everybody else speak, so that's great. Thanks.
Does anybody else want to speak to the item? Councillor Quaremba.
Thank you. I think a couple of questions actually. If this heads of agreement is such an high-level document and it's not really hold us to any sort of commitment, and why is it in confidence? Why don't we just let the community know the terms? If there's no real terms that would be bad or would be seen in the community's eyes as bad for the community, why don't we just release it?
Through the Mayor. So I guess it's like any other contractual item that we're in with a proponent with. I mean, it's not just up to council, it's up to the proponent. Pretty much most of the terms, if not all of the terms we speak about that are in the heads of agreement. But it may be a discussion I can have with the developer if they're prepared to actually release it. But again, I would say that's the responsibility of the council, and that's what you're elected for, is for you to actually be really clear of what the heads of agreement is and what's in it.
Okay.
That's your role as councillors.
And just another, I guess, a follow-up question. So was it the choice of the developer to put it into confidence, or was it also the administration or the council to put it into confidence? Who initiated the in-confidence requirement of this heads of agreement?
It was actually as part of the negotiation framework, so it was actually an agreement between both parties, and council has obligations, commercial in confidence obligations, so it was both parties.
Okay, and when you say council, you mean actually you'd be yourself, administration, and then that was actually then given to the elected members, because we didn't actually ask for this to go into confidence, it was presented that way. Is that
You
correct?
make the decision to go into confidence. I provide you with a recommendation under the requirements of the Act about your obligations as to what information should and shouldn't be made publicly available, and then you as a chamber make that decision.
Okay, and you said that we talk about a lot of the things of the heads of agreement. What aren't we allowed to talk about the heads of agreement when it comes to the community?
Pretty much who the proponent is. I don't have it right here in front of me, so I can't tell you right now.
You don't think there's any other permanent issues as to why we wouldn't be able to go out to the community?
Not off the top of my head, but as I said, I'm happy to have that discussion with the proponent. But again, it's like any normal commercial terms. We are in negotiations with this proponent, not any other one. So when we went out for an expression of interest, if we wanted it to be open to all and sundry and we were going to share everything, then we would have, but we haven't. We've decided to go into a public-private partnership with this proponent, hence the heads of agreement around those terms, and hence there is a level of confidentiality currently while we are still negotiating that should be retained.
Okay, just one last question. Is the developer actually keen to come out of the woodwork?
Yes, they absolutely are, and we are pretty much ready and poised to actually make that announcement. But we are going to wait until the members have actually had a look at both of those models next week. And given that it's actually not an announcement to say that this is who council is actually going to partner with, right now, but it's who we are in negotiations with. They are very keen because they have stated that that's pretty much the only thing that's not available.
Okay, and just last one, I think one last thing. Obviously, they're really happy to come out and tell us who they are. Are they happy to come out and speak about the terms of the heads of agreement as well? Is that something we can ask them to release?
I can't speak on behalf of the developer. I mean, you're asking questions of a developer.
Can we ask them that though, when we meet next?
Yes.
Thanks.
Does anybody else have any questions or anything that they would like to say? No. Councillor Mann, I think you moved this. Would you like to wrap up? In that case, I'll put to the vote. All those in favour? And those against? That's carried. Thank you.
Or division.
And a division. All those in favour? Councillor Mann, Councillor McKenzie, Councillor Schiller, Councillor Quinton, Councillor Schofield and Councillor Henderson. And those against, Councillors Burns, Quaremba and Cameron. That is carried.
South Coast Television, your community, your voice.